Hollywood's past is riddled with films that were so awful and foolish that they destroyed studios, killed careers, and metaphorically set millions of dollars on fire. It's not always because the movie is bad. Sometimes movies lose tens of millions of dollars due to a combination of strange disasters, poor marketing, and other internal and external factors. It is difficult to estimate the magnitude of these losses. The marketing and distribution expenditures, which are thought to be anywhere from half the production budget, again to even equal to the amount spent making the film in the first place, are rarely disclosed by studios in addition to the production budgets. Today I would like to talk about the biggest flop of 2022, and, in a sense, the greatest failure in cinema history. In February 2022, the movie Moonfall came out. Roland Emmerich deserves a lot of credit for his attempts to almost single-handedly keep the disaster movie genre alive, but even he has to admit that it might be time to let go. Critics were not kind to Moonfall when it was released in February, as the film earned a 38% rotten rating from Rotten Tomatoes. However, poor reviews are par for the course regarding Emmerich's filmography, which only features two fresh-rated movies, Independence Day and The Patriot. Despite the less-than-stellar reviews, audiences seem to enjoy the spectacle of Moonfall, which is often the case with Emmerich's bombastic disaster movies. Moonfall was a costly mistake for Lionsgate, as it only earned a third of its $146 million budget, making it the year's biggest box office bomb so far. It seemed that Moonfall would be the biggest flop of the year until August. Warner Bros. Discovery sent shockwaves through Hollywood when they made the unprecedented decision to completely cancel the HBO Max release of Batgirl, which had a reported budget of $90 million and had already finished filming, and was well into post-production. Batgirl would have starred in The Heights breakout Leslie Grace as the titular heroine, Oscar winner J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon, Brendan Fraser as the villain Firefly, and Michael Keaton returning as Batman. The film's narrative would have centered on a new version of Barbara Gordon, as she embraces the role of Batgirl in a new era for the DC Extended Universe, starring Leslie Grace in the title role. Batgirl was a highly anticipated movie that would have introduced a popular member of the Bat family to the DCU, and explored significant changes to the universe following a continuity shakeup. While many heroines have used the Batgirl moniker, Barbara Gordon is perhaps the most well-known and popular of them all. While not the first Batgirl, Barbara Gordon quickly became a popular supporting character of Batman, debuting in the comics mere months before making her first live-action appearance in the classic Batman TV series. Despite her character's popularity, the Batgirl film was unfortunately cancelled following Warner Bros. And Discovery's merger due to several factors. Batgirl allegedly did not satisfy test viewers, though other reports suggest it performed no worse in test screenings than the upcoming Black Adam. A more likely reason for the film's sudden cancellation is that it was going to be set in an altered version of the mainstream DCU timeline, which the franchise's new management no longer wants. Furthermore, Warner and Discovery is now seeking a new direction for the DCU, focusing on tentpole blockbuster films predominantly centering on DC's Big Three: Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. Batgirl was a smaller production intended to be released on HBO Max, and what is known about its story and setting suggests that its narrative is similarly insular, making it conflict with the DCU's new direction on multiple levels. Unsurprisingly, Batgirl would have been an origin story for Leslie Grace's Barbara Gordon, though it purportedly would take liberties with the source material. According to Hollywood insider Matthew Belloni, the film had an atypically small scale for a DCU installment, and the plot was unfortunately quite convoluted, with Belloni reporting that it was comparable to a TV pilot. This, along with Batgirl's continuity being incompatible with Warner's vision for the DCU's future, likely further contributed to the film's cancellation. Bad Boys for Life directors Adil, Arbi, and Bilall Fallah have been tapped to helm DC's upcoming Batgirl movie at Warner. Arbi and Fallah most recently directed the third installment of the Will Smith and Martin Lawrence starring franchise, to a box office busting $426 million in worldwide ticket sales. After the success of Bad Boys, Arbi and Fallah were hired as showrunners of Disney Marvel's Ms. Marvel series. The duo also directed multiple episodes of the show, which is set to debut on Disney+. The directors did a great job and most of the scenes were shot without chroma key. The Gotham in Batgirl seemingly retained the gothic vibe that's frequently associated with the primary Batman setting, and overall, there is clearly a solid effort to capture the nuances of the location and recreate the city as it is in the comics. Batgirl had massive set pieces, and the scale of production of the movie was also sizable given its modest $90 million budget. The filmmakers undoubtedly did a commendable job replicating Gotham direct from the pages, leveraging Glasgow's Victorian architecture to facilitate the transformation. The car junkyard, moldy bridges, slums, and seemingly burned-down infrastructure suggests that Gotham in Batgirl had a crumbling, decaying vibe. This was probably deliberate to serve the narrative, as the city's dilapidating condition would bespeak its need for a savior, thereby factoring Barbara's superhero into the story. Earlier, reports suggested that Warner considered funneling more money into Batgirl to give it a more theatrical look. But since filming was already done, expanding its scope wasn't possible. But as the new images show, Batgirl seems to have a sufficiently theatric appeal, and with a little more work, it could have been poised to run in cinemas. It's also been indicated that the test scores for Batgirl's initial screenings weren't exactly bad, and the new set photos only back those claims. The idea that Warner only wants to focus on theatrical releases moving forward makes sense, but it's a little hard to believe. Of course, the finished product could have looked much different, but the pictures make one imagine how bad it could have possibly been. That said, it does seem that financial prospects took much precedence when Warner Brothers decided to axe Batgirl. But whatever the reasons, it's regardless a missed opportunity that enthusiastic won't ever be able to witness the spectacular Gotham that Arbi and Fallah had created for their film. So why hasn't the movie been released in theaters? Is it because of the bad reviews of the test groups? Welcome to the weird world of Hollywood finances, where not releasing a $90 million movie is actually a financial strategy. When the purchase of Warner by Discovery, it was announced that the company had $55 billion in debt. This stems from the efforts of Adil to turn it into a media conglomerate, which caused the studio lost 75% of its market value, so they had to sell the company for $43 billion. When in 2016 the telecommunications company spent $85 billion to acquire the Warner Group. $90 million of real money was spent to make Batgirl. Like for any movie, that upfront expense is out the door, gone during the film's production. The money was used to pay cast and crew contracts, and for supplies and equipment, lights, cameras, action needed to actually make the film. This $90 million expense is paid by the studio but remains off the books until the film is officially released in theaters or to streaming, or both. Only when a film is officially released does that initial expense, $90 million, in the case of Batgirl, go on the books. Bottom line, it's only the on-the-books number that matters to movie studios because that's what is reported to shareholders, figures into taxes, and determines the valuation of the company. In the case of Batgirl, this strange math sums up to zero. Batgirl may have made $0, but by not being released, effectively, $0 were spent. While this financial formula is used to mitigate loss throughout the movie industry, there were some special circumstances that played to Warner's favor with the timing of Batgirl. In April, AT&T's Warner Media merged with Discovery to form Warner Discovery, headed by CEO David Zaslav. Because of this acquisition, Batgirl can be treated as an asset under the new company's control. And where this golden ticket shows up, on the bottom line and in the profitability of the company, they can write off probably the whole $90 million, and that will reflect better on their overall economic performance. Who loses? The fans, the directors, the crew, and the cast, which starred Leslie Grace as the first Afro-Latina Batgirl, and included a supporting cast of Michael Keaton, J.K. Simmons, and Brendan Fraser. Warner will likely honor any contracts, but won't incur any unnecessary additional costs. This means that any budgeted post-production work left on the table, and royalties that would have been generated, won't be paid out to their respective parties, typically a film's producers and copyright owners. The studio bosses took advantage of the situation and did not take any chances. Most female superhero movies failed before that, and given the test screenings, it is highly likely that Batgirl would have failed as well. The odds of Batgirl seeing the light of day in any shape or form may seem low, but any of their cancelled content, including Batgirl, could still be released in some form one day. Warner Brothers Discovery inherited a tough financial situation from years of executive mismanagement at Warner. So it's understandable why drastic action was needed to find savings opportunities and get the company back on track.